It is a special edition of Litter Media Live, and look at this crew that we have on top of Mt Kilimanjaro. Going to visit here in just a moment with these lovely folks from Foothold International. We have Brad Cherie and Cherie Catron. Thank you for coming in. We'll talk about what this experience for them was like, and look at those majestic views right there. And I'm talking about the backdrop, not just Cherie. So we'll touch on that in just a moment. Right after this from our friends at Tomlinson Insurance Agency.
This is Andy Tomlinson. When insuring what's important to you, our agents are there when you need us the most. Tomlinson Insurance, for the best coverage at the best cost. Visit us online at tomlinsonins.com to learn more.
Back with Brad and Cherie Catron. And Cherie, I'm going to admit, it was probably a year and a half ago, I think I saw your post on planning on taking this trip to the top of Mt Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Foothold International, you have a mission camp in Kenya.
Yes.
And this has kind of been your eyesight, hasn't it, this whole time?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it was a dream of mine to climb that mountain for a good 10 years. When our work in Kenya is right on the border of Tanzania, just 45 miles from Kilimanjaro. So I had dreamed of this for a long time, and we decided to do it as a mission. So part of the goal was to raise funds for 2 water wells in Kenya for my climb. And so all of the advice said never tell anyone. And I had decided I would never tell anyone because I didn't want that pressure on myself. But when I finally decided to do it, I put so much pressure by doing that fundraiser along with it. So it was it wasn't the most ideal thing to do when you're so nervous about something like that, because so much of the climb is mental.
Yeah.
And when you put that much pressure, it's just, it's probably not helpful.
So you did this 10 years after you first thought about it.
Yes.
As you were doing the hiking, were you taking a moment and saying, man, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, I spent 10 years preparing, honestly, reading and researching and gathering equipment. So I felt like it was the time. It was just the right time to do it. Yeah.
And Brad, of course, you're married to this idea, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah, I tell people I'm married to an adventurous woman.
Now, what sort of preparations did you need to make? Because this is a nice elevation in Africa.
Yeah. One of the first things that we had to do was, of course, start looking for equipment, and like wearing layers, things like that. Good backpacks and good boots. That's one thing. You want to break your boots in. You don't want to just put them on and hit the mountain. There's the equipment, and then there's also, hiking in various conditions, because the climate changes from the base to the summit. So it can go from 80 to 0. Mm-hmm. So yeah. You have to prepare and pack for that, that variation in climate also. Yeah. So, and then it could rain. So, you have to keep that in mind too. So.
How many days does it take to trek to the top?
It varies. We took one of the longer trips, because the longer the trip, usually the higher success rate. And so we took the trip the path that was one of the higher success rates. So it was 8 days for us, but you can go in as short as 5 days. And that's just it's just harder for your body to acclimatize to the changing altitude. So that's just the difference between the trips. So 5 to 8. And then there's a few trips that go on for more than 10 days too. So
now, how would this compare to like Mount Everest? I mean, you don't have Sherpas or anything like that?
Yes, we actually do.
Did you? Okay.
So we have our porters are like Sherpas, basically. Yeah. So we had, for 4 of us, we had 14 total support staff. We had 2 guides, a cook, various different jobs, but then we had just general porters that carried our tents and our food and all the equipment. So it's very similar to that, and as far as you have to have a support team. You can't just trek it by yourself. They won't let you.
Now, Brad, you have been a distance runner. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I've been running for about 45 years.
Yeah. How did your preparation change for something like this?
Well, first of all, Cherie warned me. Of course, she went a year before me, and then we went together this last year. And she kept reminding me that the athletic type, or those who are runners, are the ones who typically fail the fastest on Kilimanjaro.
Uh-huh.
It's because they tend to take things a little faster and tend to use their running skills. But no, the running helped me as far as not only preparing on how to breathe, but also how to and help me with the climatization. And I think it helped with endurance too, because I think on summit night it is you don't dare get in front of your guide, and your guide will walk so slowly. And some people may want to get impatient and say, well, why isn't he going faster? And, he's been up that mountain probably 150, 200 times, and he knows. Yeah. He knows exactly, and he's setting you up for success. So you just have to just kind of swallow your pride and say, well, I could run up this. No, you can't.
You really have to listen to them, because they will say there's times for you to stop. There's times for you to move. So on summit night in particular, it's cold and you get tired and it's dark and you want to stop. And they've instructed us, we cannot stop for more than 5 minutes. So once per hour, we take a break. But, when you take a break for 5 minutes, you want to keep breaking because you're just tired. And so sometimes they push us too, because they know the timing, they know the temperature, they understand places that the altitude is going to increase in a way that you're not going to be prepared for it if you take it too fast or too slow. So they push you in both directions, and they check our vitals twice a day. So we have to talk openly about our bathroom habits, and they make sure that we're going to the bathroom properly, that we're hydrated. They're always checking on us. And the Tanzanian Wildlife Service is very, very strict about certification for guides and porters, and so it's pretty well regulated. There's no way you can just show up and just say, I'm going to do this today. You have to have porters and guides with you.
I'm picturing the difficulty I have maneuvering the 12 steps we have to get up here to the Litter Media Loft every day. I can't imagine doing the climb all the way to the top there for Kilimanjaro.
Well, yeah.
What about the adrenaline? And here's why I'm bringing this up, because you're looking forward to doing this. Now it's 7 days, and then summit day is the 8th day, and you've certainly, your body has got that adrenaline motion for that.
Definitely. One of the things preparing wise, Ross County is a great place to prepare because we have really great trails. But Brad and I were just hiking this weekend, and you have that tendency when you hike and you're getting up to the top to sort of like push yourself a little bit, like go a little faster. You can't do that on Kilimanjaro. You have to establish kind of a rhythm in your breathing and get used to kind of just taking this kind of rhythmic hiking. And when you see like, oh, I'm almost to the camp, or I'm almost to this point, you can't push yourself there. You've just got to continue to keep that. And that's a mindset shift about Kilimanjaro. So sometimes you have to sort of fight a bit against that, adrenaline. Because it'll push you sometimes to do things but the guides they're always monitoring you and checking you. My first trip, when I saw the rim, and I was really struggling because I have asthma, and my asthma was not cooperating.
Another challenge.
Yeah, it was definitely a big challenge. I was having a hard time on summit night because of that, and I saw the rim, I saw the signpost, and I started to run. And it was very dramatic. Francis, our guy, was like, no, you could hear him and he grabs me, and it didn't take much for him to just pull me to the ground and stop it, Cherie. And he said, that's very dangerous, And so that kind of mindset, you have to sort of, it's really a lot of mindfulness. So breath work, yoga are really great ways to prepare for that. It's just really, I heard on a documentary once that mountain climbing is an act of meditation. Your body doesn't want to go up. Your body wants you to stay down here. Yeah. And so every step is kind of a mental a mental game.
And I imagine it's multiplied by the number of people in your party.
Yeah.
Because you're all going through something similar.
Yeah.
Right. And you're similar but different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you may not have summit night in your mind at all, or you might not even be thinking about the difficulty, and then somebody speaks up and says, wow, I'm really getting nervous about summit night now. And then it's like, oh, okay. So you have to be on your mental game too. Mm-hmm. It's like, and so I was wondering how I was going to do that, because there's some downtime on the mountain. Some days you'll hike mostly all day, but then some days you'll hike maybe only 4 hours. and what am I going to do with my downtime? You know, I don't have, I can't really use my phone and things like that. And then, so there's nothing much to do up there. You just go up to camp and eat and sleep, and that's about it. And so, so I was concerned about how I was going to handle that, staying busy. But, I took that time to rest.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, you got to do it. And hydrate all the time.
And I think that was what was so cool about our team this time, is that what makes the trip really good is if everyone is very honest and vulnerable about where they are, if they're having, anxiety, or if they're not feeling well. It really works well for the team to talk about it. And so we had a group of, my son and his friend, and we were all really good at just holding each other accountable, checking in with each other. And I think one of the struggles can be when someone tries to hold it in, and the guide says, "Are you okay?" And they say, "I'm fine." Everybody knows they're not fine. Yeah. There's no hiding it. Yeah. And so it works so much better to just be vulnerable about it and say, I'm struggling right now. I'm in my head right now, or I'm having some pain here. That really helps you through that process. It made the trip really kind of a delight for all of us really to work together, because it always seemed like when one person was struggling, other people were strong, and we all really worked together and talked it through. A lot of times for great storytelling and and chats and things like that. So, I think that's really important if you're going to do something like this, even if it's not Kilimanjaro, is get used to being comfortable, being vulnerable, and know that your guides and the support staff are there for you. And so they're not trying to catch you and tell you to go back down. They're there to help keep you safe and keep you, setting you up for success is what they're trying to do.
And I'll add to that, I was supposed to go the first year with Cherie, but we'd done all the preparation. I'd bought my equipment and ended up not going because of my mother's health reasons at the time. And so, people were saying, "Well, aren't you nervous that she's going up that mountain and you're not there? Or aren't you're not with her? And are you going to be able to talk to her every day?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And so, our guide, Francis, Cherie had met him a couple of other times, but I had not met him. And so, I had complete peace in not, I couldn't hear from her, couldn't talk to her, except for sometimes when her phone might have service at certain camps. But I trusted that guide implicitly to take her and the other two women to the summit. Yeah. And I had no worries whatsoever. I knew that they would make it. And so I think then finally when I was able to go this last year, I had all the confidence in the world of my guide, and I had to just put me aside and say, it's all about Francis now. I'm just going to do what he says.
He's in charge. He's the boss.
Did you pray harder when she was on her own or when you were with her?
What's that?
Did you pray harder when she was alone or when you were with her?
Oh, no, I was both. It was like, but yeah, I was, yeah.
I would think one thing I would struggle with would be, maybe this being an 8-day trip. Yeah. Midway through, the reality of, we got to go back would hit me. But you said it's kind of a faster trip going down.
It's a different route down, yeah. So you take a long kind of weave around the mountain. So for acclimatization, one of the things is it's good to sleep high, climb high, sleep low. And so this particular route is a newer route that was designed for that purpose, that you hike high and you're up and down and you're weaving around the mountain. When you get to the summit, you take a direct route down. Yeah. So it takes about 6.5 days to get up to the top, about a day and a half to get down. So.
That's from where they tuck and roll.
We talked about that.
Now, people watching today, they're seeing these majestic views behind us, and I know there are so few that you could say, okay, this one, because there's so many different views.
Yes.
What can you tell us about some of the shots that we're seeing here? They're rotating on an 8-second basis here. So
this is obviously the signpost where everyone takes their photos, and this is the highest point, of course. But when you get to this is looking at the glacier, right, Brad? Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there's several glaciers there on top of Kilimanjaro, and they vary in size depending upon the time of the year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those glaciers are right there, and you can walk right up to them, they say. You just can't
And
take from them,
they're melting as we speak. So that's the sad thing is they're not going to be there forever. Unfortunately, they're much smaller than they used to be. This is the other picture you just saw before this was looking. There's Kilimanjaro is a volcanic mountain, if you can just imagine that explosion. And so the center of it is a crater, and you could actually camp in that crater, which is another route we could take. There's the glaciers again. But one of the things when Everest has like a very iconic summit point, and it's very, I don't know what to say. It's not that it comes to a very dramatic point, but Kilimanjaro has a huge crater rim. So when you get to the crater rim, you're not actually at the summit, you're at what's called Stella Point. And then you hike another like half mile, another 500 feet in elevation around that rim. So all the way around that rim, you're seeing views of both Kenya, Tanzania. You're looking down at Mount Kenya, Mount Mwenzi, Mount Meru, these massive mountains that are like over 14,000 feet. You're looking down on them, and you're just seeing this, like, and you're so far above the clouds.
That's
so
Mount
there
Mwenzi
isn't
right there.
Yeah, and so there isn't like a one iconic picture of the summit for that reason. And so I remember I was looking for it, and I'm like, it doesn't look like much. Well, you just can't capture it in a photo. The best way to have is like a video of it, but it would be a very long video, of course, to capture that. But
I can't let this pass. Brad's reaction to you saying another 500 feet or so, and you were just like, almost like that was a hard 500 feet.
It was.
Yeah, because Stella Point, they say technically if you have gotten to Stella Point, you have summited. So if you get that far, you're good.
Yeah.
But
you'll get
the
a
ultimate
certificate.
summit is Uhuru Peak, which is another 500 feet up. But keep in mind, you're at over 19,600 feet. I mean, literally, when you fly around that in the air, when you're flying out of the airport and they take you around Kilimanjaro, it's as though you're reaching right out of the airplane and touching the mountain because it seems that close.
It's something just to fly over it. It is incredible, the view over it. Yeah.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, about the altitude is that some people say, well, how do I know if I can handle that type of altitude? And from what we've read and what we're told is that you're genetically predisposed to altitude sickness or you're not. And so you may be the fittest person in the world. In fact, very fit athletes have gone up Kilimanjaro and failed because of altitude sickness. So, we went to Colorado last spring, and attempted at some 14ers out there, and so that kind of helped us.
Attempted is the key word there.
Yeah, that's because of the snow.
The weather got the best of us.
The weather got the best of us out there.
But still, you're going 4 miles up into the air.
Yeah.
That's hard to fathom.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, you fly to Africa. Of course,
Yep.
it'd be quite the trip if you could swim. But you have to fly there. So again, back to that anticipation of this opportunity to summit. What's it like controlling your emotions from when you leave Columbus to fly to Africa? And I assume, do you go direct to Africa, or do you have to go into Europe? Or
Yeah, so there's several routes into flying. You could either go through the Middle East, like if you fly Qatar Airways, which we often do, or fly through Europe, Paris, or fly Ethiopian Air, which will take you directly into Ethiopia. So yes, you're not going directly from, and the airport in Tanzania is this teeny tiny little airport that you land in. So I'm always marvel. I've watched people for years that we flew with, and they've got the boots on, so they're climbing Kilimanjaro, and everybody always seems so cool. But for me, I'm like, I've got so much anxiety, I'm so much excitement, and I can hardly contain it. So I don't know how everybody else stays so cool, but
you're like a newbie, right off
every
the start,
time.
every
I'm like,
time.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with that. We mentioned the fact that you've got a mission camp there that you and we've had Brad on to talk about your water sanitation and the things that are going on there. It's just incredible. And starting the soap factory and these women having jobs now and a way to make money. Talk about the impact that you've been able to make there, and people here locally who have donated and helped and prayed for your mission going on there.
You let me talk about it? Well, the work we do there is holistic. And so, but everything we do, the one thing that we measure is girls' enrollment in school. So whether it's clean water, whether it's providing washable menstrual pads for girls, whether it's providing soap, it all goes back to increasing. That was the common theme. We're increasing school attendance and enrollment, especially young girls. And that is also the marker that helps alleviate poverty. So in Africa, has 75% of the world's poor live in Africa. That's projected to be 90% by 2050. And so we are targeting that trend right there. And so the one thing that alleviates poverty long-term is education of women. And so we also work with boys. Boys benefit from all of what we're doing too, but girls are the most vulnerable, and they also statistically are the ones that give back the most to their communities. So we don't neglect the boys at all. They benefit from everything we're doing as well. But so we, a lot of programs provide tuition or pay school fees, and that's only a part of what we do. We really want to get to the heart, the systemic issue behind why a girl isn't coming to school. Oftentimes it's not about school fees. Oftentimes it's because she doesn't have pads, or she has to trek 4 miles or longer to fetch water, and there's no time to attend school. And so we want to address those issues, those barriers, and oftentimes those are not even expensive. So we can make a big impact there for a little bit of an investment.
Yeah. And I know, Brad, when we talked here a while back, the men in the population are kind of lazy. and we've got Cherie laughing about this. But have they started to show more responsibility or accountability through what's been going on?
Well, we work with a tribal culture there called the Maasai. And they kind of, they kind of stay to themselves, but they have their traditions, and it's a very patriarchal society. And in short, according to the old tradition, the more wives you have, the more children you can have, of course. But that's all determined by the number of cattle that you have. So the more cattle you have, the more wives you take, the more children you have, and the daughters are valuable because when a daughter is not in school, then she could be married off very early for a dowry, which means more cows. Mm-hmm. So, but one of the things that we started to see happening is the men are very set in their ways there, and we are empowering the nationals to do this work. We're not going in and doing it ourselves or trying to say, hey, if I just tell you how to do this, you do this, you're just like me, you're okay. No, it's not that way. Okay, we empower the nationals to empower their people, and it's amazing to see, and give you story after story, and how an empowered woman will change the attitudes and help and really get some of these men thinking about the destructive traditions that they have. And next thing you know, they're scratching their heads saying, a wife who can earn her own income is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Or, my children are now going to school and my family's thriving. My children are healthier. This is a good thing. And so the impact that we're seeing is it's just happening.
Well, and last year, before I climbed Kilimanjaro, I met with a group of Maasai men who were they've been watching the women's groups, and they formed a group really modeling after those women, and they were organizing themselves, and many of those men have decided to break tradition. And so there's a group of them, about 10 to 20 of them, that have broken tradition and are living with their wives, taking care of their children. And because they're breaking tradition, they've also lost their inheritance. So they have no resources. And so they're trying to figure this out. Like, we want to live with, one wife. We want to take care of each other. And so they're kind of preaching the gospel of how great it is to live together and the joy of that. Because what we also discovered is these Maasai men, many of them are very, very lonely and have a lot of, sadness. And so seeing men like them living with their wife, taking care of their children, that can be a good thing. And so, but they have forsaken, their father's inheritance to do it. They've taken great risk. And so it's one of the things that we're working with these men's groups, because they're also encouraging their families to keep their kids in school, to practice more sustainable farming methods, because the amassing of cattle is really destructive on the environment there. And so we're excited because some of these men are catching the fever for it. And that's great. Yeah, it was really encouraging. And
this didn't happen overnight. You've been at this for a number of years now, and it's got to be rewarding in some fashion, and maybe get your juices flowing again, seeing productivity like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, it has been. I've been going to Kenya since '04. Sherry's been going since what?
06.
06.
Yeah.
And so, but we were with a former mission organization before Foothold International was started in 2011. And so we've been in one place. We've stayed in one place, and that's one of the things that we wanted to we felt we had to accomplish, was that we couldn't move from place to place to place. We had to sit down, take root there, so to speak. And we rent a house there, and people are familiar with us. We're there 2 to 4 months a year, and we interact with society. We go to the market just like everybody else. We do everything just like everybody else, and it's been amazing how that's given credibility and given So it's been good.
Well, yeah, and the cool thing I've been doing this month is gathering testimonials from the last year, and there's nothing more like energizing than reading these stories. A young woman who was virtually blind. We were able to get surgery for her, and she's top of her class, and hear her story and where she wants to be an eye doctor, and is definitely intelligent enough to do that, but a simple surgery that costs about $500 could have, without that, she may have not been able to go to high school, and then certainly didn't have the funds to pay school fees.
And we'll give a shout out to Lions International.
Yeah.
We were able to connect with them in Mombasa, Kenya, and they've made that surgery possible for this young lady.
Yeah.
So she went from barely able to reading right here. So far, she's had one surgery. She's able to read perfectly out here. So
Great.
when she gets that surgery on the second eye, hopefully in a couple of weeks, things are going to change.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Perhaps someone watching, we have helped to whet the appetite, first of all, to maybe make the trip to Kilimanjaro, but also to maybe make the mission trip.
Yes.
How do they get a hold of you, and what sort of things do they need to know?
Well, we love to take people. So we don't, our organization, we don't have set trips. We do custom trips. So when someone comes to us, or we have an idea or request from Kenya, then we start recruiting a team. And so we don't have, so that's where we are. We encourage people to come with us to visit our projects. They can get a hold of us through Facebook, of course, through our website, footholdinternational.org. You can read testimonials on our website as well. And then if they want to climb Kilimanjaro, you can do that as just a tourist trip, which is really good for the local economy. But you can also do it as a mission to raise money for a cause, too, like the water wells, like I did last year. And we just started a Facebook group. So we can give you a link to that, too, our Facebook group, if you're interested in climbing Kilimanjaro. You can. And right now, the month of January is a really good season to sign up and start preparing for that. Yeah. You can wait till maybe like 2 months out, but this is the best time.
Yeah.
And that's become our specialty over the years. We used to take teams of 10 to 15 to 20 people, 8 hours around the globe and out of their comfort zone, and it's we help prepare you here, whether you just go to visit our projects, or you visit our projects and do Kilimanjaro, or just do Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
We're here to help prepare you for that, so that when you hit the ground, you hit the ground running, and you're prepared. You know what to expect in a lot of ways, and it just makes things go so much smoother. And so we've been able to do that and do it well. And
we even encourage people, if they're taking any kind of trip to Africa, we're a resource. We want people to check in with us, ask us questions. There's lots of people who have taken trips to even Uganda, because we've been to Uganda and Burundi and places like that. We've got a good feel for what's safe, what sounds, what passes the sniff test, things like that. And so we encourage people to reach out to us if they're traveling anywhere, or if they just want some advice, because we've been doing this for a long time. And Africa's a very safe place to travel to, but there's some things you should know to make it safer, and some things to watch out for. So tourism is really good for Africa, and so we want to encourage people to do that. Even if you're wanting to go on safari, or, it's still a good, you're giving back to the economies if you do it responsibly.
Now, this is an important question. Mm-hmm. What's their reception to the gospel? What's that been like?
Do you want to answer that?
That has been a transition.
Yeah, definitely.
In the early days, we focused on equipping the nationals also, but we did a lot of the sharing and we did a lot of the work. But there was a transition that took place, and it's like we were really reevaluating our work and saying, yeah, some of it's successful, but how can we do it better? And so we found that through these projects and working with people of faith there in Kenya, of all different denominations, mind you, that in just working with them and having having hearts to reach others and see their see other people's lives improve, we have seen the gospel go further by us equipping the nationals or coming alongside the nationals and helping them realize or achieve their dreams. Much better and I believe, much more effective than us doing the work. And there's a time when you step up and you do some of that work yourself. But the more that we can empower others, I believe it goes further, has more credibility. It also has, and it also is more effective.
Yeah, once you establish a trust factor, I'm sure that is more than half the battle.
Well, yeah, and people, and with us putting roots there into Veta, Kenya, people know us. And so if you just come in and you're there for 2 weeks, they're kind of like questioning you, It's like, what are you doing here? Yeah. But when you've been there and you go to the market with them, you go to the shops with them, you meet them on the street, and that you get credibility that way, and they know why you're there, and they know what you're there to accomplish, and they're receptive. So.
Yeah. I mean, Kenya in general is very receptive to there's a lot more, I would say, acceptance of different religions there. So even the fact that we came in and we did church planting and evangelism first has given, it was kind of weird. It's kind of the reverse of the way we think here. We did that first. And so when we do a project like clean water, sanitation, oftentimes our nationals will introduce us and say they first came and shared the gospel. Mm-hmm. And even among a high Muslim population, that's respected. Because that's what your motive was. So they're always kind of wondering, why are you doing this project? What are you gaining from this? And so they see that as, you have more credibility because we came with the gospel, because we came and helped establish churches first. Which I guess, again, a lot of times here we think we got to earn people's trust first and then we can share. But it's really the reverse in that particular area. Other areas are different. But that's always the way people introduce us there. Like, they came first and they did that. And so, again, like Brad was saying, our pastors and church leaders, if they don't have clean water, they're not able to reach their congregation. Mm-hmm. They're not able to reach their community. Really and so bringing clean water is such an empowering resource to a church or to a school. And so that's where we target our work right now.
Bringing them living waters.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
Foothold International, again, your web address is?
footholdinternational.org.
Okay. And, of course, find more details on Facebook. And if you have that wish and desire to see Kilimanjaro in person, these are the people to contact. Brad and Cherie, thank you so much for stopping in today and sharing.
Thanks so much.
And we'll be back coming up here in just a bit with our regular daily program at 11 o'clock. For Brad and Cherie Catron, I'm Dan Ramey. Thanks for watching Litter Media Live.